Mark Twain once wrote, "It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog." Lofa Tatupu fits this description like a hand to glove. He was a self-made player, slight amongst the monsters that surrounded him, and imbued with few athletic gifts. Lofa relied on a heart 2 sizes bigger than any other player on the football field. He used his big brain to maximum effect, gaining intuitive extra steps that turned plodding speed into teleportation. Sit down, folks, and let me tell you the tale of Lofa Tatupu. Self-made players in the NFL are some of the funnest to watch. You see in their grit and determination that extra asset that allows them to belong. These are men born without the physical measurables or the gift of natural athletic dominance, yet they nonetheless fight and scratch and claw their way to becoming a professional football player. And every once in a while, one of these grinders turns into a star. Seahawk fans got to enjoy just this type of player for a short but spectacular ride. The pride of Polynesia, Lofa Tatupu was like a shooting star, burning blindingly bright, only to fade away as quickly as he emerged. He was the complete middle linebacker, equally adept at both covering sideline to sideline or smashing running backs in the hole. And when he had the opportunity to pull the trigger, he put grown-ass men to sleep. One game in particular illuminated Lofa at his dominating best and cemented him at the time as one of the game's preeminent middle linebackers. Lofa Tatupu came from excellent football genes. His father, Mosi, played 14 years in the NFL as a fullback and standout special teams player for the New England Patriots. For a decade, college football gave the best special teams player in the country an award in Mosi Tatupu's honor. Despite this strong lineage, Lofa endured an uphill climb to reach the NFL. Even college coaches were skeptical, despite Lofa starring for his high school team as both the starting quarterback and middle linebacker. No Division 1A schools recruited him out of high school, and so he was forced to further prove himself, playing for that college superpower, Maine University. After an outstanding freshman season, Lofa caught the eye of USC coach Pete Carroll, and soon afterwards transferred to what was becoming at the time the #1 program in the country. As soon as he arrived at USC, Lofa's special work ethic, battering ram mentality, and Stephen Hawking-like intelligence on the football field not only made him a fixture on a stacked defense, but a leader on a team of talented young men all vying for that role. In his 2 years at the Coliseum, Lofa spearheaded a defensive unit that ran roughshod over its competition, winning 25 of 26 games and 2 national titles. You would have thought NFL teams would be waiting to welcome Lofa with open arms. But much like the college coaches before them, many seemed less than impressed. Being surrounded by 5-star talent at USC actually worked against him in the eyes of some of the scouting evaluators, believing the blue chippers elevated Tatupu's play and not the other way around. There were scouts and GMs who thought he looked much shorter than his listed 6-foot height. They thought he lacked the length and speed to excel at the next level. Some pointed to his combine showing as proof of these claims. And while Lofa ran a glacial 4.8240, his quickness, vertical, and strength numbers were all in line with other top prospects at his position. But that 40 time hung over him like an anvil, threatening to crush his draft dreams. Luckily for Lofa, he had a benefactor in one Tim Ruskell. Tim Ruskell inherited the general manager role from Bob Ferguson, who had only recently taken the position over from Mike Holmgren. The going consensus was the Holmgren-Ferguson general manager tenures had been far too willing to ignore characteristics and concentrated with a tunnel vision on simply talent alone. While Ruskell took fewer risks than the prior management, he also went in the complete polar opposite direction. His drafts were marred by an obsession with 4-year starters at major programs. In 2005, his first draft, the approach actually worked in his favor. He traded 2 4th-round picks to move up in the 2nd round to draft his man crush, Lofa Tatupu. The pundits decried the pick, insisting Lofa was really a 3rd or 4th-round talent at best. In Coach Holmgren's prior seasons as the Seahawks head coach, the middle linebacker position had become a carousel, like Spinal Tap's drummer or the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. LaVon Kirkland, Randall Godfrey, Isaiah Kazavinsky, Anthony Simmons, and Orlando Huff all took a crack, and it seemed like every season there was a new man in the middle. The second Lofa walked onto the field with the hawk on his helmet, Seattle had finally found a talent and leadership at the position the team had been missing since perhaps its inception. He provided a simmering intensity and an array of skills that would have fit in any era of football. His instincts intuitively always put him in the position to make the sure tackle. He was deadly going after the quarterback, timing his blitzes to confuse even legends. In his rookie year, he was affectionately hailed by the fans for being a master butt slapper. The opposing offense would come to the line of scrimmage. Lofa would calmly read the play in its direction, and then he would tap his defensive lineman on the behind to adjust their alignment. This usually led to Lofa or the lineman shooting the gap and making a tackle for a loss. When Lofa left, it took many years to overcome not having a butt slapper. Where Lofa really shined, though, was in pass coverage. He possessed an outstanding ability to diagnose plays, and he read route combinations like Richard Sherman. His underrated quickness made him a quarterback's nightmare when he dropped into zone coverage. Pre-snap, he was nearly impossible to predict. He masked his intent and read the quarterback's eyes like a telepath. This was on the brightest display when the Seahawks went to Phildelphia on a foggy morning in December. The Seahawks were just a couple years removed from their first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history. And while they did continue to win, the team suffered from injuries, poor recent drafts, and key free agent losses like Steve Hutchinson to the poison pill contract. This season, they were doing a good job of reclaiming that magic, sitting atop the division at 7-4 as they entered this game. The Eagles, coached at the time by Andy Reid, were down their starting quarterback, Donovan McNabb. Veteran journeyman A.J. Feely was going to get the start for an Eagle team that was fighting for its playoff chances. From the first offensive snap of the game for Philadelphia, Lofa put A.J. on notice. He undercut the route, cleanly picked the ball, and took it back 20 yards down the field. This play was pure Lofa. He feigned the blitz, giving the quarterback a read where the tight end appeared uncovered. But as soon as Feely looked away, to the other side of the formation, Lofa retreated like one of his defensive linemen sharted in his face, and he got a huge head start on his zone drop responsibility. It appears Feely was trying to look off the safety, and so he never recognized Lofa's misdirection. His pass sailed right into Tatupu's arms, who had the tight end firmly in his back pocket. By the second interception in the first quarter, it's clear. Lofa knows he's in Feely's head. He stalks the line of scrimmage pre-snap, giving the quarterback no feel for his intended purpose. As soon as the ball is hiked, Lofa continues his mind games, reversing the direction he was moving in pre-snap. He takes a false step towards the tight end in his drag route, but it's all a ploy. Tatupu reads AJ's eyes like he was looking into his brain and jumped the route with the aggressiveness of a cornerback, even high-pointing the ball. He returned the pick inside the 5, showing off those sweet fullback feet bestowed to him by his father. Tatupu's exploits are what made this game remarkable. Both teams' offenses were able to move the ball, as A.J. Feely avoided Lofa at all costs, sticking to the flat and sideline routes. Both teams leaned on their respective running games. Fading star Sean Alexander was returning from an injury but still looked slowed, only able to gain 65 yards on 20 carries. Maurice Morris came in and gave the Seahawks some juice. He broke off a huge run that soon led to a late touchdown. After the defense got another stand, the Seahawk offense was unable to run out the clock. They punted, and the Eagles' do-it-all running back Brian Westbrook juked and burst his way for a huge return. Suddenly, the Eagles were sitting pretty, while the Seahawks were about to snatch a loss from the jaws of victory.
I got a third pick in this. Oh, do you? Yeah, okay.
The teleportation that Lofa sometimes seemed to possess was on high display on the final defensive play. The Eagles were in a 3rd down and 7, desperately needing a touchdown to win the game. Off the snap, to A.J. Feely, Lofa appears to be holding his ground, even giving up a half-yard step towards the tight end who was running a drag route underneath. Seeing this, Feely ignores his receiver open on the curl route and goes after Lofa's zone instead. From the time A.J. begins his wind-up to the interception, Lofa has suddenly mystically transported 4 yards, showing off that 35-inch vertical leap to seal the deal. Game over, Seahawks win. Lofa Tatupu added 11 tackles, 2 for a loss, and gained 100 total return yards on those interceptions. Great players at the peak of their game usually have a signature moment, and this was Lofa's.
You know, the middle linebacker did a pretty good job of kind of have an idea of what was going on. But that's, you know, bottom line, it's me. It's tough to swallow. You know, second week in a row, it's not a good feeling, and it's on my back.
I mean, you know, they're just throws he wants back. You know, I mean, it's too bad it happened. Same guy, you know, gotta know where he's at.
This season, the Seahawks came to the end of the road of their great success under Mike Holmgren. For the 4th consecutive year, they won their division, and for the 5th year in a row made the playoffs. But the writing was on the wall that change was on the horizon. Pro Football Reference mentions this Seahawks team had the easiest schedule of any modern-day NFL team to winning their division title. They never played a team with a final record above 10-6 until they were easily routed by the Green Bay Packers in a snowy spectacle that saw Brett Favre giggle like a girl and the Hawks take a beating like a man. The end of an era approached. Mike Holmgren would move on after the next season. Much of the 2005 Super Bowl roster was quickly turned over soon afterwards. Lofa had his best year in 2007, posting career highs in interceptions, tackles for loss, forced fumbles, and quarterback hits on his way to being named an All Pro. He still played 15 games the next year, but it was clear his body was starting to break down. The NFL is a brutal sport, and for the undersized middle linebacker who threw his body around with reckless abandon, it was unmerciful. Injuries and multiple concussions cut his career far too short. As Luke Kuechly prematurely retired, Bobby Wagner is now set to become the middle linebacker of his generation. As Cam Chancellor came along to make some people forget about Kenny Easley, so too did Bobby's emergence push Lofa to the shadows. As the key leader on a defense that helped elevate the Seahawks to their first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history, Lofa deserves to be remembered as a one-of-a-kind player who could do it all.
As Sean Payton was saying, the thing that we have to do is we have to get a helmet. If we're going to run, and we're going to run inside, we have to get a helmet on Lofa Tatupu. That time, they got nothing on Lofa Tatupu.
They said he was too small, unathletic, slow, not dynamic enough as an athlete to make it in the NFL. But by blood and guts, by a willingness to do what others won't, to work harder than the rest are willing, Lofa became a Seahawk great. Long live the legend of Lofa Tatupu.